Listen to this episode if you want to make sales every single day in your product based business. Today, we're going to talk about the difference between active or passive sales. I know this is a major milestone for a lot of people is learning how to make sales day and night every single day, kind of hit that major consistent sales mark in your business. You might right now really know how to make sales when you're launching or when you have a sale going on or when you have some sort of sales incentive or a promo, but to get sales in between them feels a little tricky. To get people to buy when you're not even selling might feel kind of like crickets or like you were pulling teeth. Today, we're going to talk about the differences between these two, how to make sales passively even when you're sleeping or you're not working, or when you are working on your business and not needing to show up with a new launch, a new product, a new discount, something along those lines. We're going to dive into the differences in these sales strategies between passive versus active sales. If you're new here, I just want to take 10 quick seconds to say hello. My name is Madison Page. I am a business growth specialist. I help product-based businesses grow through building a ride or die community around their social media. I like to teach in a fun conversational type of way. I like to say it's kind of like sipping coffee with a biz bestie. We are going to be here chit-chatting raw and real and genuine business growth advice, and kind of like you're sitting across the table from me sipping a coffee. Make sure that you subscribe. We put out new episodes every Tuesday and Friday. We have 350 hours of podcast out there for you to learn about how to grow your product-based business. So when we dive into this, as I've said, there's active and there's passive sales. First of all, we're going to talk about what are active or passive sales. Then we're going to dive into how to really focus on an active sales strategy and what are some passive sales strategies and what does it take in order to really get there and where do people mainly go wrong. And then we're going to talk a little bit about content and what it really takes to like how to figure this all out within a calendar. So active sales is, like I've already said, when you have a launch, when you have a promo, when you have some sort of sales incentive, like when you have something new to sell or you have a hard call to action to be giving people. So a sale, a promo, a restock, a launch, something new, a new collection, all of that is an active sales period. Then we have passive sales, and passive sales are making sales in between those. This is every other time in between active selling, and you are constantly bouncing back and forth within your marketing and your sales strategy between an active selling period and a passive selling period. An active selling period at first are naturally going to be the days that you can master. Some of you may have already kind of mastered your sales or your launches. Right now, the only time that you might even make a sale is when you are launching something or when you are discounting. But when you can really grow passive sales is when your business is healthy. It's when it's going to sustain. It's when you're going to be able to take a step back and know that your processes are still working. It's when you know you have a ride or die enough community that you're actually going to be able to not have to feel like it's pulling teeth to make sales. Launching is not cost effective, it is not sustainable, and it's not something that you can depend on every single month in order to make sales. In order to hit high cash months, you have to really figure out how to make passive sales. Passive sales are really having enough systems in place to allow for people to move through your sales process in a much easier way. To give you a good example here, I had a client that reached out to me last week and she said, Maddie, I know that this is kind of not a normal win that you might hear, but I've had a lot come up in my normal day-to-day life. And when I joined PTP, which when she joined to work with me in September, it's now April. She said, when I tried to join and work with you in September, I was making around $1,000 a month max on my busiest month. And I was showing up every single day on social media. I was launching, I was selling, I was discounting. I was trying everything I possibly could. It felt like I was begging people to buy from me to make $1,000. Now, a couple of months later, she finished working with me in December. It's 3 to 4 months later. She said, Maddie, life has kind of been kicking me in the butt. My energy had to go elsewhere. We're 2 weeks into the month. I haven't really posted and I still made $1,000 passively. So she went from doing everything she possibly could, discounting, launching, restocking, doing all of these different things, tons of actions to make $1,000 a month, to now not doing anything and and she's still making $1,000 a month in 2 weeks. She's made over $1,000 in 2 weeks by not posting, not having to pull any teeth. Why? Is because her marketing is still working. She has passive sales systems set up to convert for her, and she has built a ride or die enough community that people are coming back and buying from her over and over and over again. You need to master both of these if you want to have a sustainable, freedom-filled business that, yes, makes a ton of sales, as well as allows you to step back from your business and still has money coming in. I don't think enough people in the product-based world talk about passive sales, because you hear this a lot in like the service-based world or the digital, like kind of like the digital product space, just because a lot of those sales are truly passive. Like for me, I could sell a course and I could not have to do anything to actually make that sale come through once you actually make the course. However, when I say passive sales in a product standpoint, I'm more so talking about sales without you having to actually have a sales incentive going on. So now I want to dive into what are active sales strategies, what is it all about, and what do people often miss? And then we'll move on to passive. So active sales is basically like herding sheep into one cycle. Active sales is when you are taking everybody within your sales process and basically pushing them and herding them into the checkout over and over and over again. It's basically a strategic energy shift to get people excited, educated, and ready to take action. It is actually very easy to launch, have a sold out launch over and over and over again, because as people, we love new things. We love energy. We love excitement. We can feed off of other people's energy very easily. These are naturally going to be the days that you make sales first, because it's intentional, because it's this energy exchange, and there is an excuse to actually build energy around something. There is a reason that you can show up and sell. There is something new. There is something exact for you to talk about. It takes a lot of emotion. It takes a lot of energy. It's a lot of hype. It's a lot of excitement. But launches are easy to sell because there's so much that you can talk about. You can educate them on what it is. You can tell them why they buy it. You can build a little excitement around it. You're basically giving people FOMO over and over and over again if they aren't buying. These active sales periods are necessary. You do need to have some sort of sales incentives in your business. Like I said, in every business, my clients, if they're making $1 million a year, $5 million a year, or $5,000 a month, or $1,000 a month, your active selling days, the like 24, 48 hours around a launch, are going to be your busiest days. That's just how it works. That's like Black Friday is some of the busiest days for most businesses out there, because you are bringing so much energy to it. You are pumping a lot of people. You are herding sheep in that category. Passive sales is you having enough systems in place in order to convert people naturally. You're kind of more so sprinkling in sales-driven strategies to move people through a funnel on their own time. Instead of herding people there, you're kind of just trying to manage them within your community all at once, and allowing for you to have these like kind of tripwires and systems in place in order to move people closer to your checkout. You're kind of naturally trying to get people to go throughout your sales process based on the messaging that you're putting out there. I feel like you're like my client that I was talking about before she joined PTP, that you're kind of doing everything to make $1,000 or $2,000 in your business, or you need to have launches, you need to have sales in order to make any amount of money in your business. Chances are you probably don't have a passive sales system set up in place in order to actually convert for you. Passive sales don't really happen unless you intentionally build systems to make them, because it actually is hard unless you are herding somebody into a certain area and they desperately need your product to actually get them to buy. It's on you to place little systems throughout your sales process to move people closer to the checkout. This is all about, yes, it's about consistency, but more so, It's about having the proper messaging, the proper content pillars, the proper variety to tell people information that they need at all different areas of the buying cycle, and then having tripwires in place, meaning when they're stalking you, when they're on your website, when they're on your profile, when they're looking at your content, they have little systems that are kind of there, kind of like little booby traps in place to actually get them closer to that checkout. Passive sales are all about you controlling your sales. It's all about you kind of filtering in the proper information, the proper content, the proper messaging in order to build desire and manually move people through a buying process. Now, a active sale, like if you're doing a launch or a discount or something like that, is basically you automatically moving people to that buying process. Now, a passive sale is a more manual process. Not that it takes more of your time, but it's basically you kind of seeding different conversations in order to move people through. Now, you might be saying, Maddie, that sounds like it is a time consuming process. It isn't when you know what content to post, what messaging people need in order to get there. Where people go wrong with passive sales is they either just keep launching month after month after month after month because it's the only time they make sales, that their audience never actually gets used to buying something passively or having something consistent enough on your website that they just keep moving to that next collection and waiting for your next collection to come, or you stop selling altogether when you don't have something new going. You're like, oh, I can't be salesy all of the time, so I'm going to stop selling whenever I don't have a launch, which again means your audience never actually gets used to buying from you in between. Or you might just not have any sales strategy at all, or you're selling basically 24/7 every single day. Passive selling doesn't actually feel like selling. It feels like educating. It feels like providing value. It feels like you are connecting with people. Because if you've been in my audience at all, you hear me say that some content is meant to grow, some content is meant to nurture, and some content is meant to sell. You are not selling every single day like you are when you're launching. When you're launching, it should feel like you turned like a fire hose on and then you're selling. You're like, all right, let's turn this bad boy up. Let's up the amount of sales content we have. When you're passively selling, you're going back and forth between growing and nurturing. You're getting new people into your community. You're connecting with people. You're providing proper value, proper messaging, proper information. And people, you have your systems in place that people are naturally moving through your sales process. This is where we have content that grows, structure to nurture, and systems and tripwires to sell to people. So when you have people come into you, they naturally can get moved into your community, and then they naturally get moved into your sales process that are on your website, on your profile, in your highlights, on your email list. There are little places throughout all of your marketing that we can have call to actions that people can find. So when they are stalking you, I've been saying this a lot, is it's kind of like chutes and ladders. Is like, they're going throughout, they're watching what you have, and then they go down and they get to the sales process, or they're going this way, that they're able to find multiple different kind of invites to buy, that they are able to move through your buying process without you having to manually do it. With sales should not stop when you don't have new products in place. When you get sales while you sleep, you are able to build freedom. You need to be able to balance both active and passive sales. Why people feel like they stop actually seeing sales happen when they stop selling is because they actually don't have a sales strategy unless they are selling something new. You have to be able to know what actually just garners desire, garners like interest, and gets people excited about something without you actually having to do that. When you are constantly just launching, or when you're constantly discounting, you're actually doing something kind of counterproductive for building a sustainable business. I think a lot of people think, well, if I just keep launching, one of these products are going to catch on enough that I will no longer have to launch. But if you are training your audience that you're just going to keep launching and pumping something out that's new, you're basically building building an audience of people that always need something new to buy. You have to allow for people to be able to connect to something consistently enough. You have to allow, if you're just constantly changing your collections all the time, or changing the style, or changing the colors, or changing the patterns that you're launching, people can never actually connect deep enough to one of your products to want to come back and get more. My clients that are the most successful have some sort of hero product or signature line that they can constantly go back to. And then we have these seasons where you don't have to be showing up as much on social media and you're still making sales. And you have to be able to balance these two things. Even though your launches and your sales days are going to be the days that you see your most amount of sales, in order to have a business where you control your income, where you have some security, and when you have high cash months, you need to be able to have people buying from you in between different times. What a passive sales really takes is, it takes a lot of systems, it takes a lot of testing to figure out what works, and it takes a lot of content refinement, meaning when people come to me and we're working on getting them passive sales, we first put the systems in place to get people onto email lists, to put people through these tripwires, to get people the proper information and invites that they need in order to buy in a bunch of different places. But what we're actually doing is then you need to find the proper content pillars that they need to post in order to actually garner interest and excitement around something. We are constantly building and finding ways, what actually gets people activated? What do you post that actually gets people to take those next steps? So what it takes is a lot of testing. It says, hey, let's start with this messaging. Let's start with these content types. If this doesn't work, we then pick the one that is working, and then we come up with other content in order to see this. We want to look at what is actually getting people interested and activated based on your data, and then you can kind of double down on this. So this is where I talk about having a rinse and repeat marketing strategy. When you know every time you press post on a post that has messaging around this certain topic, it gets to be easy, it gets to be fun. It gets to become something that feels a little bit more natural. You know, all right, today, what am I posting? I'm talking about this pillar of content. I put this messaging on it. I have my videos already made, and I know I'm going to get this result because we have tested and we have refined your overall system. This is why the majority of my clients have like 4 different content pillars that we end up saying, okay, these are the content pillars that are clearly working for you. These are the content pillars that you can go back to and are actually going to garner the results that you're looking for, whether it's growing, because you need a content pillar that is constantly getting new followers in, whether it's nurturing and really getting people to understand who you are as a brand. You need content that is constantly going to reinstate kind of your major values or message behind your brand. And we need to kind of move people through your different content pillars. Anyone can launch and make a couple $100. You absolutely can, make something new. You can bring enough energy, because at the end of the day, sales is just an energy exchange. But that cycle is actually very toxic. And you might be in it that you're like, Maddie, I literally am just going from launch to launch to launch to launch so I can actually make a couple of bucks. But then you launch and you make a bunch of money, and then you spend all of your money on your next launch, and then you launch again, and then you spend all of that money. It is an expensive thing to produce products, to come up with new packaging, to come up with new ideas, to take more product photos. It's expensive to keep producing more products. The majority of businesses that win start with 1, 2, maybe 3 products max. They get people to really love those products, passively make those sales all the time, and then you can expand. So a lot of brands, if you are stuck in this cycle of constantly launching, we have to transition your business model to actually convert organically without having to constantly be selling something new. You will milk every dollar out of that audience. I have a lot of clients that come to me and they say, Maddie, I started launching, and every time I would launch, I would make $2,500 or $1,000 or $3,000, even like $8,000. But now it has started to dwindle. Why? Is because you've milked every dollar out of your audience. And now we have to learn how to sell to people outside of it. How do we get repeat customers? How do we get new customers? How do we get more strangers to buy from you? How do we move people through a buying cycle without you having to launch all the time? Because it's just not a sustainable business model. Now, I love launch periods. You have to be able to launch, but it can't be the only time you make sales, because you will burn out, your customers will burn out, and you're actually just training your audience to need new things all of the time. You'll run out of money. It's a common kind of like threshold point that I get a lot of clients at, is they say, I've been launching over and over and over again. They're in this chronic cycle, but now they're ready to kind of hunker down and sell the same product every once in a while. But it feels like it is a scary process to step away from launching, but it's actually going to make your business more sustainable in the long run. So when we look at this, active sales is all about energy. It's all about emotion. It's all about hype. It's all about excitement. It's herding sheep to that area. And passive selling is all about being able to naturally build desire, intrigue, and excitement around something without you having to be this like high vibe, really high energy and excitement all of the time. It's having systems in place. It's having automations in place. It's having marketing that works every single time you press post. You're either going to get people interested, you're either going to build desire, or you're getting people to take action based on exactly what you are creating. It's having a very strong marketing understanding of the content that's working. It's creating content and testing which content pillars are working, pick the ones that are working, add them, keep them up, and adding other ones in there that allows for you to actually have a marketing strategy that is predictable. Because your launches right now are probably kind of unpredictable. This one makes $300, this one makes $600, this one makes $1,500. We have no idea why. We just know that some people like some things more than others. And then you're like, all right, I just launched a bunch. I made a couple of dollars. Now let me use this money to produce something new, and maybe that will be the one that sticks. You're never actually allowing enough time and energy and space for your audience to pick up and to buy something over and over and over again, or to passively make sales, because you're constantly just bombarding them with other products. Anyone can launch something and make a couple $100, but can you learn how to balance these two different types of sales within your sales calendar? You should always sit down with a sales calendar and put your sales strategies in, your sales days, your launch days, your promo days, the days that you have some sort of sales incentive. Those should be on your calendar, and you can do one every month if you want to, but it can't be consistent enough with always having new things. We need to allow for weeks in between, weeks to grow, weeks to nurture, and weeks to actually have new people move through this funnel. If you're kind of stuck in this, you probably have a really high return customer rate, which might sound great, but at the end of the day, it's not the badge of honor everybody thinks it is, because it means that you don't know how to convert new people. You don't have enough new people coming in to actually move through your funnel, which means we then have to look at your passive selling strategies. There's a lot of things that you can kind of put in place that actually allows for people to move through these systems. Do you have systems in place? Do you have information in place that when new people find you, they know exactly what you do, they know why you do it, and they know what those next kind of sales processes are in order to actually convert? When we look at one of my clients, I had a client that came to me and she was in this. She was launching basically a full new collection of like 5 to 10 different pairs of earrings every single month. It was a new seasonal collection, or it was a new this, it was a new that. It was a completely different vibe every single month. She was burnt out, and she had like a 75% return customer rate. She was lucky because she had built a really ride or die incredible community, which is awesome. I love that for her. She knew that every time she would launch, she would make, $3,000, $5,000 every single time, but she was burnt out. She was spending a lot of her money developing this new product, and it actually was counterintuitive to her overall long-term goal. She had this signature collection that was beautiful, that she really wanted people to love, but because she just built this audience of always having these limited edition series, she never actually got people to go back to that signature collection. So what we did was we took a break from launching. we realized that she could actually make that $8,000 naturally. We just had to build a message around her brand. We had to get consistent with it. And it actually allowed her to make more money to sell less, to actually launch less, to actually do a lot less behind the scenes. She didn't have to produce as many products. She didn't have to produce as many product photos, the product descriptions, putting them on the website, doing all of the launching. She still was making $8,000, $10,000 a month, no matter which month it was. No, and without having to launch all the time. Why? Was because she had systems in place. She used that community to garner enough return customers, as well as learning how to move other people into her community. We created these systems where she had new people coming, new people nurturing, and new people selling into her world. You can do that too if you have proper passive sales systems. So some of the takeaways that I want you to take today: launches are great. They're energy. They are high energy. They're your high sales days. They are basically an energy and excitement exchange. But you can't have a sustainable business without actually mastering the passive selling. This is why people feel like they have very inconsistent sales, is because they only know how to actively sell. They don't quite know how to passively sell. So in order to passively sell, you have to understand, look at your data, have systems in place to see what content is actually getting people to grow, what content is actually getting people to nurture, what content is actually getting people to sell, and how can we kind of sprinkle those in throughout the week and have systems in place that are moving people through your buying cycle in order to get there. If you want passive sales, you can't just post random product photos or sell all of the time, because your audience will get burnt out from buying. Your audience will get burnt out from being sold to, which actually is going to have the opposite effect. So what we have to do is we have to figure out the content that is actually going to build that community, get people really loving your product, nurture them into it, building kind of value and like-minded, providing them information, and getting them naturally to those different tripwires that don't feel like selling, and actually get them to buy from you. I hope that this was helpful. I hope that this was kind of a perspective shift. If you are stuck in that launch cycle, that don't be afraid to step out of it and really try to sell a signature line that you have or the products that you have, because you don't have to constantly be selling something new in order to get there. Hope that this was helpful for you to really take a step back and say, do I have systems in place? Do I have automations in place? Do I know what content is going to get what results? And if your answer to that is no, it's time to look at your data. It's time to sit down and come up with a different content strategy, because you can't get to consistent sales unless you know how to passively sell. Because if you're just constantly launching, you're going to get those sales for 48 hours or, 48, 72 hours. That's great. But we need to learn how to sell every day without you having to pull teeth and to really beg people to get to that checkout. That is how we get to that consistent sales mark. I hope that this was helpful for you. I hope you're feeling a little inspired to maybe cancel or push back that next launch and just sell the products and the inventory that you have within your content. I love you. I'm rooting for you. I'm in your corner always. Reach out to me if you have any questions on this. Join the Small Business Cafe. We're diving deeper into this topic in there today. Would love to have you. It's our free podcast community. You can click the link in the show notes to join. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next episode.